Welcome to another episode of the Rankum Podcast. My name's Garrett Seawright. Glad to have you along with us. Got a lot of great reaction from last week's episode where we talked and ranked our 5 favorite Little Debbies. Joining us on today's podcast, as always, co-host Don Garwood. Don, how are we doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Hey, doing well. And also joining us this week is our good friend Reese. Reese Wolford from over in Mansfield, Ohio. Reese, how we doing?
I'm doing good. First time, long time. Excited to be here.
Glad to have Reese alongside with us this week. So last week we ranked our top 5 favorite Little Debbies, and Reese was very adamant that we were all morons for our rankings. Am I safe in that assumption, Reese?
I feel like you're being a little easy on yourself, if I'm being completely honest.
So what was your biggest point of contention with our lists of the top 5 Little Debbie snack cakes?
Well, I think Nutty Buddies are a pretty clear number one, no matter how you eat them. And I think you guys were giving Fudge Rounds too much love because they suck.
No. Fudge Round is teetering on number 1.
That's so general consensus in my household. The interior of Fudge Rounds, trash.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I
They
think
said the cookies are okay. The filling is trash.
Do those people have the Rona and their taste has gone bad?
They've lost their taste buds.
That I don't think they have the Rona.
Have they been tested?
We have not been tested.
So that is, and believe me, I got lots of text messages from friends and things like that. Like, hey, I listened to it. You had Fudge Rounds 2. You should have had Fudge Rounds 1. Or, for instance, just this afternoon, I had to go to Walmart for the first time. First time I've left the house since March 18th. And I went into the Little Debbie aisle, and it was just like a whole new experience for me. There was so many different options that I never even considered. It was a whole new world. It was basically me and Jasmine on a magic carpet ride. Yeah,
magic carpet ride.
That's exactly right.
We're also going to need some comments. If you listen to the last episode, I was told that I was a psychopath for pushing down the little stars on top of the brownies. I still think that the way that Zach eats the Nutty Buddies is more ridiculous than anything else that was said on that podcast.
No, I think you're 100% right. I mean, those people are right that you are a psychopath for taking the time to smash down the cosmic into the cosmic brownies.
If I could interject here, I don't like cosmic brownies because they're gross. But when I did eat them when I was younger, 100% smushed the little candies down so they were flat.
Is that a real thing? Like, do people other than you psychopaths do that? Or
if you're a tight dude, that's how you eat cosmic brownies.
Apparently, it's me and children. That's how we eat cosmic brownies.
I think that's a bit redundant, Don. You and children, I think, are one and the same.
Yeah.
When I say I was younger, I mean like when I was in college, like 6 years ago.
Perfect.
Don's like, oh, it's great that I haven't outgrown that stage of my life. Then that's fine. So again, I'm Garrett Seawright, joined with Don Garwood and Reese Wolford on this week's edition of the Rankum Podcast. And this week, we are going to rank our top 5 favorite Disney Pixar movies. And there are several dozen great options, but we're all going our top 5. Before we start, guys, do you have any comments, anything you need to say before we start our lists?
Okay, so Pixar movies, there really aren't any bad ones. There are some bad ones, and I haven't watched them. I think that it's fair for me to say that nobody has The Good Dinosaur on our top 5 list.
I can say that I do not have The Good Dinosaur.
The Good Dinosaur is not bad, but it's not top 5.
And I do think it's important to note that Reese does have kids. Don and I do not have kids. Reese does, so he might be more well-versed in the later Disney Pixar movies than Don and I, or at least I like to hope.
I have seen every Disney Pixar movie creation at least 30 times because my
So Reese has seen all of the Disney Pixar movies at least a couple of dozen times apiece. So without further ado, since Reese is maybe more the Disney Pixar expert than the rest of us, Reese, what comes in at number 5 on your list?
All right, so number 5, gonna go off the beaten path a bit here. I'm gonna go with Brave, and for a few reasons, but the main reason is because I love Scottish accents. They crack me up. And this movie's just chock full of them. But it also has a saying, like a little quote in it, that I use inappropriately, probably at least 10 times a week with my wife. But in the movie, one of the elder clansmen, his son wins the competition. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched Brave. But his son wins the competition to marry Merida, who's the girl. And after he does, he lifts up his kilt and bends over and he goes, "Feast your eyes." And,
oh, gosh.
I get down with that saying.
Your poor wife.
Yeah.
She's got to feast her eyes upon that. But you're right. The Scottish accent is phenomenal to listen to. Like it is pleasing to the ears.
Yeah, it's not in they it also is like the beginning of the like Pixar universe, the whole Pixar theory, which is a whole another rabbit hole that you might want to get into on another podcast.
I'm glad that you brought it up because I was also going to bring it up. Garrett, are you?
I do not know. I do
Pixar
not
theory?
know the Pixar theory. I can deduce that all the movies happen in the same universe just from the way you're talking, but I do not know the Pixar theory.
That is correct, because you can see in multiple movies, you can see characters and references
Gotcha.
to the other movies. And it's like crazy to the point where like in like one of the first movies they made, is it Bug's Life or Ants? Which one is
Bug's
Pixar?
Life.
Bug's Life.
Bug's Life
And
is
then there's
Pixar.
like a reference hidden in that you find in like one that was made like in like Wall-E. Like
Yep.
it's like 9 years ahead of the time when Wall-E was made. You see like references to them in like 1999. So
Gotcha.
it's crazy and everything's connected.
All right. Well, we can dive into that at a later time. But Brave coming in number 5 on Reese's list. Don, what's number 5 on your list?
So number 5, I have got Up. Up is a very good movie, and it has that very sad beginning to it. That little short montage brings a tear to your eye every time, and it has some really good character development throughout the movie, especially with the old man, and throughout the movie you can kind of see why his wife married him and fell in love with him and stayed with him until the point that she died, because he started out as an extremely unlikable character, and by the end of it you could kind of see like his actual happiness or true personality coming out there.
Yeah, I agree. I will talk more about Up later on. Spoiler alert. Also, I think it's important.
I do relate to him as the grumpy old man as I get older.
I was going to say, Don, you're 30 years old. Mr. Fredrickson in Up was much older than that. But I think I do think it's important to point out, though, that we do not know each other's lists. We haven't talked about this ahead of time or anything like that. So we have no idea where anybody is going to go with their lists. And so when I tell you that my number 5 is Cars, I expect there to maybe be some consternation from the crowd that I don't have it higher on my list.
Consider me consternated.
Oh, what was that word?
Consternated?
it's good, but it's just so cheesy and corny, and I realize that I'm 25 years old when I was watching it for the first time, and I might not be the target audience, but there are other Disney Pixar movies where I'm also not the target audience that I love. So Cars, to me, it's just not great.
Ka-chow.
Yeah, it so Cars is really, really entertaining. Like you said, it's like cheesy funny. Like I love they have the like Richard Petty character in it, and
Carl Trip.
I was just about to say Carl Trip.
Yeah, and there's so many corny jokes of like, I got to win the Piston Cup. He did what in the cup?
What in the cup?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just a different comedy that I don't particularly love. So Cars is number 5 on my list. I assume it will be higher on others, but it's just not for me. So that is our round. That is our 5th place. So I have Cars, Reese was Brave, and Don was Up in our ranking of Disney Pixar movies. We'll go back the other way around the clock. Don, number 4 on your list is?
Number 4 on my list, Finding Nemo. Again, I just like you and Cars, I might get in a little bit of trouble for not having it higher, but I have it at 4 just from replayability. I mean, that's kind of what separated 2, 3, and 4 on my list, is how many times I can watch it and not get tired of watching it. Or at least enjoy a little part of it. And Finding Nemo, I think, is one that I can watch like once a year. But it's got their characters in that are really cool. A lot of the main characters have disabilities that they have to overcome. And Garrett took a class with me on college about the disabilities that were in Finding Nemo. We both immediately dropped that class after the first class period when they were talking just ruining movies.
Well, so the instructor of that class was trying to make the argument that it is not imperative that Nemo be disabled in the movie and that they're exploiting disabled people for laughs. No, it is absolutely imperative to the plot of that movie that Nemo has a gimpy fin. And the fact
if Nemo doesn't have a gimpy fin, he doesn't try to prove to his dad that he can go out and
his dad's not a crazy maniac. Like his dad is not crazy overprotective. But he does have a gimpy fin, so his dad is crazy. Now his dad is probably going to be overprotective of anyone, but it is imperative to the plot that Nemo have a bad fin. And this teacher was trying to say it wasn't, and I don't know that I ever got more angry in a class than I did with that teacher, that I basically like gave her the finger and ended up walking out of the room because it was so dumb. Her argument was horrible.
It like you said, it's the whole plot is him having a gimpy fin.
Everything revolves around him having a bad fin.
Even once he goes into the fish tank, like the gimpy fin comes up repetitively because Dennis Leary's character, I can't think, he has the jacked up. Yeah. He had the messed up fin too. The whole it didn't stop me. He swims by like he's some sort.
And he got to grow and learn from that character, that because he would have used that as an excuse for the rest of his life unless he met Willem Dafoe's character, who I can't remember off the top of my head what his name is.
I thought it was Willem Dafoe too.
Yeah, I said Dennis Leary, but Willem Dafoe is who was in my head.
Okay. They do sound kind of similar, actually. But
they kind of look like each other too.
But the whole plot revolves around him having a bad fin. And this teacher's like, nope, they're exploiting disabled people. Like, shut up, you moron. So there's a little tangent for you, that rabbit hole that we...
Well, not to get you on another tangent, and Don was saying he might get in trouble for having it at 4. I don't even have Finding Nemo in mention.
Really?
Nope.
What is...
Do you
just love things?
Dory?
No. Although the Sigourney Weaver parts of Finding Dory are really entertaining.
Yeah, Finding Dory.
I think it's just confirmed that Reese hates fish.
Yeah.
And disabled people.
Those are two things you're going to have to defend yourself against, Reese. But I didn't have Finding Dory in my top 5, and I don't. And now that I look through it, I don't have a sequel in my top 5, and that might come up in discussion later. But Finding Dory is one of the better Disney Pixar sequels. So Don has Finding Nemo at number 4. Reese, who do you got at number 4?
At number 4, I'm kind of going with the flavor of the moment here, and I have Onward. And I know it just came out, so I'm going to try not to like talk about it a lot because I don't want to ruin it for anyone. But it's more or less a coming of age tale and an RPG jammed into one, and I love RPGs, and that's why I love this movie so much. And Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are great in it. They're like Chris Pratt's character is as the like lovable Ophi older brother is great.
He's very like kind of Jack Black in the movie, like Tenacious D style, like Jack Black, like that comedy type of character in it.
Yeah, that's actually like a perfect analogy for his character in that movie. But it's funny. It's got that it's got a good story, like an original story, and it's got that good like Pixar moment, like that kind of tugs at your heartstrings a bit, but at the same time you're like happy while you're watching it. So that's where I got it. Like I said, I'm gonna try not to talk about it too much, just in case people haven't seen it, 'cause it's kind of new. But I got Onward.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. We have Disney Plus, and I think my wife and I started it and got like 5 minutes in, and something came up and we had to stop. But no, I haven't seen it either. But if you guys are speaking that highly of it, I might need to take the. And is it an hour and a half? Like it's a kids movie, so it's not
it's
2 hour, 15 minute,
super long. Yeah.
So Reese going with Onward at number 4 so far. In the number 4 rankum slot, Don has Finding Nemo. Reese has Onward. And my number 4 is Ratatouille. And I don't know if you guys have it ranked higher than I do. I really, really, really enjoyed Ratatouille. I think Patton Oswalt as a voice actor was really funny. The plot was ridiculous, but it's a kid's movie. So the idea of a rat controlling a human being as a chef by pulling his hair underneath a hat. I thought it was really funny, really well made, and that's why I drop it at number 4 in my list.
I hated Ratatouille.
Really?
Ooh.
I don't like anything about it. It's probably my least favorite Pixar movie that I've watched.
That's
Other
a
than
very yucky
that's an
opinion.
original. Okay. It's an original. There are some very poor sequels.
Right.
But the original movie, don't like it.
See, I think if we were doing a like pick your top 5 underrated Pixar movies, I think Ratatouille would have been like in the top 3 for me because I don't think it gets the love it deserves. It's really entertaining.
And one of the things I think people forget the Disney Pixar movies that just had one film. Like, Incredibles is on what? Incredibles 2?
2.
I was thinking there were more. Like there's 4 Toy Story movies, and there's been
Incredibles wasn't a good example.
And there's been Monsters Inc., Monsters University. Finding Nemo has a sequel. But the Cars is Cars 3.
I'd say there's like 3 Cars, yeah.
But I think some of the ones that didn't need a franchise, for less of a better word, I think they get kind of forgotten. That Disney's not constantly shoving Brave memorabilia and stuff like that down our throats. That they just let those movies stand alone by themselves. Now that might say something about their popularity, because if they were more popular, they would have gotten sequels. But I think I think that some of those lesser known movies don't get the credit they deserve, and I think Ratatouille's in that group of movies that were really good but didn't get a sequel for whatever reason.
That's because rats only live for 2 years. Toy Story the whole series takes place over 20 years.
It does.
And Cars, they don't age, so it's fine.
Well, I mean,
But tell
cars
you
do
what,
age.
I'm looking at Ratatouille here on IMDb, and it's got an 8 out of 10.
It's really
So
good.
before next episode, I'll give it another watch.
And if you
I
hate
might
it,
not have given it a fair shake. I probably watched it in 2007, 2008 when I'm an 18-year-old, kind of meh. I don't want to watch a rat
Yeah.
cook through this dude's hair. Get him out of the kitchen. That's a C plus on your health and
you're
health
like,
check.
That's
that is a
way worse.
that is a
way
health
worse
violation.
Than a C plus.
Right?
Well-
Yeah, that's a straight up F, Don. You got rats pulling your chef's hairs. That is an F.
That might be
This
kind of
this
is that part
explains-
of the plot of the movie? Is like the health inspector coming in? Or
Yeah.
no, it's a food critic.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Well, yeah, but the health inspector comes in at the end and they kidnap him and throw him in the closet.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to teach kids. Yep, back down to the bottom of the list.
So that is around the horn for our number 4 rank. It is important, I think, to note that so far we have named 6 movies, or we've had 6 selections and 6 different movies selected.
Yeah, that's actually incredible. Like I'm surprised we've made it this far without doubling up.
Which I think we're probably going to start doing here as we get into the top 3 of our Rank 'em podcast list. We are ranking the top 5, or our 5 favorite Disney Pixar movies. Reese, coming in at number 3 on your list is...
I'm gonna go with Monsters Inc. Not Monsters University, which was entertaining, but I think Monsters Inc. is the better Monsters movie. Just the idea behind it is really cool. Like through your door, there's a whole nother like monster world, and they're having a scream shortage, so they're trying to figure out new ways to keep their society going. But it's also funny because like the monster that's gonna break the all-time scare record also ends up being this big soft like teddy bear with this little, what was the equivalent of probably like a 3-year-old girl. And I mean,
right, who's not afraid of him at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's the top scarer, and she's just not even a little bit terrified of him. And Mike Wazowski, like who hasn't
Mike Wazowski.
Exactly quoted the little kids from it. The 2319 scenes are hilarious. Keep the doors coming. I'm feeling good today. So as you can see, this is one of my son's go-to movies, so I've watched it at least 50 times. I could probably quote the whole thing back to you.
All right, go.
No, go. Okay.
we will sit
got
here.
to start with the intro music. But then the random abominable snowman popping in with his snow cones. Don't worry, they're lemon. Like it's just when they're chasing at the end, when they're chasing when they're being chased by Randall through the doors, and they throw him into the door in Louisiana. Mom, another gator got in the house. Get the shovel. Yeah, like it's so good.
So Reese has Monsters Inc. as his number 3, so which means we've named 7 movies in 7 different film franchises from Disney Pixar. Don, will you keep that streak going, or are you going to double up on somebody?
Well, we've got a 2319 here because I am going to have Monsters Inc. sitting at number 3 on mine.
Had a baby Briggs.
I mean, I don't know that I could explain it any better than you just did. The only thing that you left out, and I'm glad that you left me something to talk about it, is that this is the kind of movie that connects Brave to the rest of the Pixar universe in that same theory we talked about at the beginning.
So I actually had that written down and purposely left it out because you're better at the Pixar theory than I am.
So essentially, spoiler alert, they think Boo is Brave. Or no, Boo is like the grandma from Brave.
She's the witch from Brave
that
turns the mom into the bear.
Yep, and they use, because she uses like a closet door to teleport or something like that in the movie Brave. So the idea behind the theory is that Boo was able to replicate the closet door magic from Monsters Inc.
So Don and Reese both have Monsters Inc. at number 3 on their lists. I will tell
Virtual
you.
high five.
I will tell you that Monsters Inc. does not crack my top 5.
Okay. Well, now you're just being
Now it's crazy
ridiculous.
You're just dumb.
Which I can handle that. It's not my favorite. I think it's funny. I'm not a huge Billy Crystal fan.
What? Have you ever seen City Slickers?
Yes, I've seen City Slickers. I've seen The Princess Bride. I watched him host the Oscars for 10 years or whatever. I'm just not a huge Billy Crystal fan. So my number 3, and I want to emphasize that my 3 through 1, the margin for the difference is razor thin. Like, I love these 3 movies a lot. And number 3 on my list was Toy Story. It feels like it should be higher to me, but the two I have above it are like I adore. And without Toy Story being as successful as it was, none of these other movies ever exist. Because in 1995, a whole computer-generated film is that's a gigantic undertaking. Like, it seems still really hard today, and it's 2020. I mean, that was 1995 that they're doing this in.
And it obviously was popular enough that they continued to make them 20 years later.
Right.
And they got Tom Hanks in his prime, right in between Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan. Hey, Tom, come voice this cartoon character.
Come voice a cartoon
be
cowboy.
A wooden cowboy.
Yeah,
right.
And he did
named Woody.
And he was perfect. That's true too. He was perfect at it. But the characters are great. The plot of Toy Story, the first Toy Story, is really good. Toy Story 2, I enjoyed. Toy Story 3, the end when Andy gives his toys to Bonnie. Like, as a 25-year-old dude, I'm sitting there with my girlfriend who's like, "What in the world is wrong with you?" Like, "Oh, it's over." And then they made Toy Story 4, which just was not good. I
haven't
didn't
seen Toy Story 4 yet.
Don't waste your time. It's not great.
Like Toy Story 3, like you said, it left you crying like, what is it, Bernice from Dodgeball when she gets busted for the beaver tranquilizers?
Beaver tranquilizers.
Yeah. And then you have Toy Story 4 was just like the idea behind it was cool, but they did so many things that upset me.
Well,
that I just can't. And like my son watches it all the time, but I just can't enjoy it that much.
Well, Toy Story 1, there's so many great characters, and then Toy Story 4, they've got a spork as a main character. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, how many meetings did you have about the plot of this thing? And someone's like, "I got an idea. Let's have Bonnie put some googly eyes on a spork." And they're like, "That's great. Perfect."
And then she plays with it, and now it's a toy.
Yeah.
Then they had to waste Keanu Reeves in this movie too.
They did.
Duke Kaboom is really enjoyable in Toy Story 4, though.
It might be the only enjoyable part.
Shining, yeah. When he's talking about
I have watched a little bit, didn't see any of him.
Rajon, it's a commercial. He's all upset. That's the best part.
It's just Toy Story 4 is not great. But Toy Story, the original, the 1995 with the Randy Newman music, he did the entire soundtrack. It's really, really good. So it's number 3 on my list. So Don and Reese both had Monsters Inc. at number 3 on their list. I have Toy Story at number 3. Now we're getting into, the cream of the crop here. I mean, this is the good stuff. Coming in at number 2, Don, on your list is
Cars. This, even more than Toy Story, is probably the one Pixar movie that I have seen more than any other Pixar movie. So it came out in 2006, and while I don't have any children of my own, my nephew was born December 2007, and he loved this movie. He watched it constantly all the time. In the 15-minute drive from Decatur to Wilshire, he had to be watching Cars. When he got there, we had to start watching Cars again. I mean, it was constant. We'd go down to Myrtle Beach on vacation. He'd watch Cars 8 times on the drive down there.
Gross.
He burned out multiple DVDs of it from watching it so much to where they wouldn't play anymore. So we had to go and buy another DVD of Cars for him to watch. And so this is probably the one that I've seen the most. And really, I don't choose to watch it really. Like I don't see Cars and think, oh, I'm gonna watch Cars. Right. I watched the first half of it yesterday with my newest niece who wanted to watch a movie, and she's like, oh, let's watch Cars. And I had like a mini flashback, Vietnam style. But we put it on and we got about halfway through it before she lost her attention span. So she's not as addicted to it as my nephew was, but I did end up watching half of it yesterday.
I think that's part of why, you know, it resonates that you like it that much is that she said, let's watch Cars, and you didn't go, oh, God, no, anything but Cars.
Right, which I would have reacted that way had she said Ratatouille or Toy Story 2.
So number 2 on Don's list is Cars. Reese, what about you?
So number 2 for me is Toy Story. So we were doing good, not doubling up, and now we've gone basically 3 straight picks, doubling it up. So like you said, it's like the OG Pixar movie. It's the original, and it's the cast of characters in it is just phenomenal. Like even like Ham and Rex and Mr. Potato Head, they're like ridiculous, and they have like silly one-liners that you didn't catch when you watched it originally. But like in the beginning, when he gets thrown in jail with the little sister and she beats him and all his parts fall off, he's putting him back on. He says, "Look, Ham, I'm Picasso." He's like, I don't get it. You uncultured swine. Like, it's so good. And the Pizza Planet was literally the coolest place I had ever seen in my life. Yeah. And I just wanted it to be real. Yeah, I wanted aliens to barf green stuff into my cup to drink.
Did you wanted it. Toy Story video game on like Sega Genesis? Because
no.
The Pizza Planet part of that game was the funnest part to play.
I didn't know there was a Toy Story video game for Sega Genesis.
Bro, there was Sega Genesis had Lion King, Aladdin, Toy Story, everything. All those games came out on like Sega Genesis.
Yeah, so Toy Story is like my son's favorite like movie franchise. He loves all of them. But oddly enough, I was just talking about it. He just walked in the room. He's like, Toy Story? Like, no,
yeah, like, why is Dad talking about Toy Story? Can we watch Toy Story?
Yeah, but I've literally, apart from like, it came out around when my sister was born. So like, it was a big time movie that got watched a lot when she was younger. I obviously watched it a bunch, and then I've watched it since he's been alive. I've probably seen Toy Story, not even exaggerating a little bit, 100.
Oh,
he's obsessed.
Well, and even like, you know, when we were kids, so Don was born in 1989. I was born in 1990. Reese, I think, was 1989. Movies that came out 25 years before we were born would not hold up in 1990. If you pop in Toy Story now, there's no, your kids aren't like, oh, this looks like it was filmed with crayons. You know, it's the plot's still good. The animation's still good. It's still really funny 25 years later.
Yeah, it's so good. And like you were saying, it's just like one of the things that we didn't talk about actually, it was how many kids tried to catch their toys moving.
Yeah. We all, you know,
we're not. I spend an embarrassing amount of time trying to do that.
You know, you just peeking through the door, like trying to open it or close it real quick just to see if your army men really did move around while you were gone. But it's and like I said earlier, if Toy Story flops, none of these other Pixar movies probably get made. But it was so good at the time and still is so good that we can rank our top 5 and then leave out 20 other Disney Pixar movies. So Reese has Toy Story at number 2 on his list. Don, what did you have at number 2? Cars. So my number 2, which has already been on one of your lists, is Up. I absolutely love Up, and Don, I think, had it on his list that there's that kind of mini montage at the start of the movie, or not at the start of the movie, but they show them as kids, and even now, like, my wife and I really like to travel, and when she is thinking like, oh, we don't have enough money or blah blah blah, I will tell her adventure is out there from Up, because let's go have an adventure. But so you show these kids as kids, and they start to fall in love or whatever, and then they go through that little 3-minute kind of movie in itself where there's not a word spoken. And it brings a tear to your eye every time you watch it, that you watch this love story grow from kids and their wedding day to them getting old, and then Mr. Fredrickson's wife dies, Ellie, and it's really, really sad. And it does bring a tear to your eye. And there's
make my list, but I'm crying like a baby right now thinking about it.
there's a great movie detail in there where it shows her tying his tie every day, and then at her funeral he's wearing a bow tie because she tied his tie every day, and he probably doesn't know how to tie a tie. There's that very specific cut where every day she ties his tie and he gets older and older and older, but then at her funeral he's wearing a bow tie and wears a bow tie for the rest of the movie, because he doesn't know how to tie a tie. And those little details, the characters are great. It's really just a great, 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 great movie. And that's why it comes in at number 2 on my list. So we have now made it to number 1s on everybody's top Disney Pixar movies. Reese, number 1 on your list is what?
Ooh. Hit the honorable mention first.
Oh! I forgot honorable mention. Good call, Don. Reese, before you go number 1, what is your honorable mention?
Well, let me calm myself down because I was getting all worked up, ready for that number 1 to come out. So honorable mention for me, I wanted to just put like the Pixar shorts as honorable mention because they're all so really good. Yeah,
Piper is really good.
But I won't cheat the system here. I'm gonna go with I'll go with Coco as my honorable mention, mainly because the others I had have been named already in your top 5.
I have not seen Coco. I've heard it's really good, but I have not popped it in.
The musical man himself hasn't seen the most musical Disney Pixar movie that they've made. It's incredible to me.
I have not seen Coco. I think it's in the same boat as Onward, that I started it once and then was like, it's 11:30 at night, and you're like, I'm not tired. I'm going to watch this movie.
Yeah. But Coco. It's one of the. It's kind of like Ratatouille for me. I feel like if we were doing an underrated list, it would have been near the top because, like you said, it doesn't have sequels. It kind of gets forgotten.
Yeah.
The story in it is really cool, and like the animation in it is just amazing. It's a good movie.
Don, what about your honorable mention?
My honorable mention, it was on Reese's list. Onward. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it and spoil anything. But it's got that D&D feel to it, Dungeons and Dragons feel, which is super cool. The way that they kind of integrate it into the story, and Tom Holland and Chris Pratt in it together, they worked really well together, and it really made me want Spider-Man to deal with Guardians of the Galaxy some more too. It had the way that those two interacted with each other.
Got you. I was like,
exactly.
Wait, okay, but now it makes more sense.
Nerd talk.
So those are some honorable mentions. I don't know that I have an honorable mention. My wife really likes Inside Out, but she's a social worker, so that seems like something that she would really.
Inside Out was good, but it's one of those that I haven't seen it since the first time I watched it. And that's kind of what makes like Pixar movies really good, is that you can just watch them constantly.
Yeah, it's not Inside Out is not one of my favorite Pixar movies, and luckily my son like isn't obsessed with it, so we rarely watch that one.
Well, you,
Um,
you dodged a bullet. You dodged a bullet there. Great work, Benny.
exactly.
You're not making Dad
Yeah.
watch the bad Disney Pixar movies. So we've done our honorable mentions. We've done 5 through 2. We are to number 1 now. Reese, your number 1 Disney Pixar movie.
All right. Number one Disney Pixar movie is Incredibles.
Oof.
So I know, I'm gonna catch some heat for it, but I love Incredible. It just like it's one that I'm never upset when it gets picked to be watched. It has another one of like just a super quotable moment when Samuel L. Jackson's character's trying to go help save the world at the end of the
Where
movie.
is my super suit?
Where is my super suit? Yeah, it's for the greater good. I'm the greatest good you'll ever have. And it's like watching an overweight, like past his prime superhero try and get back into shape so he can relive the glory days without his family knowing. Kind of a bad, not the best thing to be showing your kids, but it's still like it's just hard to explain.
I
why
really
I like
enjoyed
it so much.
Edna in that movie as well. The whole
Well,
Edna scene was really, really good.
she unfortunately Edna and Jack are like two of the best characters in the movie, and they get the least amount of time.
Right.
But I saw a meme the other day. It was kind of funny. It's the guy that's sitting in like a park, and he's got the sign, and it says like blah blah blah.
Change my mind.
Change my mind, and it said Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie. Change my mind.
Oh.
I think that's pretty spot on.
So maybe more appalling than that you having it at number 1. I've never actually seen The Incredibles.
Okay.
I've seen Incredibles 2, which is the dumbest sentence I've ever said out loud in my life. But I've never actually seen The Incredibles. And when I saw Incredibles 2 in theaters, I told my wife, I've never seen Incredibles, but I'm going to go see Incredibles 2. And she's like, how have you not seen Incredibles? I was like, well, I was like 14 when it came out. Like that's kind of like right there in the sweet spot of I'm not watching Disney Pixar movies that come out right now, which is hypocritical.
Right. I'm going to watch Lion King again.
Right. Or you're into Die Hard and things like that when you turn 14. You're like, I've got testosterone now. I'm not watching The Incredibles. So I've never seen The Incredibles.
I've watched Bloodsport twice today.
Right. Exactly.
I watched Bloodsport and Kickboxer.
Yeah. No, I for as much trash as I was talking to you guys about your Little Debbie list, I can only imagine what I'm going to get for the Incredibles.
For
being
Incredibles
number
is number 1. So Incredibles tops Reese's list. Don, what about you?
I'm not upset that it's on your list, but number 1? Oh my
That's
god.
my list.
I mean, it's wrong, but it is your list. You're right.
Yeah.
I've got Toy Story at number 1 on my list, and I think that people could probably see that coming. I hadn't listed it yet, but I'd been talking it up. Like you guys both said, it's what started everything, and if it kind of flops or fails, we don't get the rest of the Pixar movies. And really, do we get movies like Shrek if it fails?
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
Shrek
right.
is kind of it's DreamWorks, but it's
DreamWorks
it's
might
that
not be a
Foley
thing.
CG movie.
Yeah, it launched a whole genre of movies, basically.
It has what you guys didn't talk about, so I'm just going to talk about what I had written down that you guys didn't. Sid was a super good bad guy.
Yeah.
When
Literal
I was a kid
psychopath.
watching it, he kind of terrified me.
Well,
and so did all of those toys in his room, like the legs with the fishing pole.
The baby head on top of the
Oh,
whatever that the
The
spider
the Erectus
Yeah.
spider. Yeah. That was the freakiest one. It had one dead eye.
And we talked about quotes we pull from these movies. The one that I still quote from Toy Story, and it's an obscure quote from Toy Story, is when Woody goes to find Buzz in Sid's house, And
Oh, no.
Buzz is there, and he's like, Buzz, come on, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I am Mrs. Nesbit. I like just randomly.
Next thing you know, you're sucking down Darjeeling.
I randomly just my wife would be like, hey, Garrett. And I'll be like, I am Mrs. Nesbit.
I do have Mrs.
How are we
Nesbit
married?
written down here. I was going to bring that up as well. Like, it's just, he's a character in and of itself. And one thing that popped up in my head while you guys were talking about it, they managed to like introduce like a semi okay love story in the first Toy Story as well between like Bo Peep and Woody.
Yeah.
And the little conflict that happens when the newer, better toy comes in that is Buzz Lightyear. But I mean,
found my moving buddy.
the way from front to back, the movie was phenomenal. And like, if it's ever on TV, I'm gonna sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can second that.
So Don has Toy Story at the top of his list, and my number one is, I talked about kind of quotability almost, and my number one is Finding Nemo, which is, I think, hypocritical of me to say I've never seen The Incredibles because I was 14 when it came out, but I was 13 when Finding Nemo came out. So, but
not nearly as much testosterone.
Yeah.
I've always loved Finding Nemo. I think it's really quotable, and it's, if I'm sitting in my house and I'm back in this room where I am right now, and my wife's in the kitchen, and she'll be like, hey, do you want to blah, blah, blah? I'm like, can't hear you, Peach. Just like Peach the starfish when she was suction cupped to the front of the tank. And, Mr. Ray covers his entire kids group and says, I wonder where my class has gone. There's just so many stupid quotes from Finding Nemo that I pulled out. The music, the soundtrack is really good. The plot is great. The writing is spectacular. The voice acting is really good. So I've always been a huge Finding Nemo fan. And like I said, my Toy Story up Finding Nemo, the difference between those three movies was not a lot. I think they're all really, really great movies. And I put Finding Nemo above the rest.
There was some good learning moments in Finding Nemo as well, like how to say "see an enemy." And that
It's an anemone. It's an anemone.
And that we keep our our subesophageal ganglia to ourselves.
Yeah, there's some learning in that movie. But it's just
even though that college course tried to ruin it for us, we're not going to let it.
And that might be why I defended it so much, was because I love that movie, and then this crazy old lady's trying to ruin it for me.
One of the weirdest things that I kind of catch myself quoting from that movie is escape.
Escape.
I escape all the time. And P. Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney.
See, P. Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. So that's why I got it at number one. So when we look at our composites,
none of us mentioned the stoner turtle.
Well,
I just remembered that too.
The stoner turtle. Mr. Turtle. Whoa, Mr. Turtle is my father. Call me. Name's Crush, dude. And then there's his little baby turtle is his son is Squirt. It's that's
which I just realized are like both
sodas. Yeah.
Yesterday when my niece was playing with her little Squirt turtle stuffed animal, I was like, oh crap! That turtle's name is Squirt, and his dad is Crush. Mind blown.
We got an orange soda, a lemon lime soda. Oh my god, my wife is in the room right now and just went, oh my gosh, her mind is blown. Her mind is blown. She had no idea either, Don. So you're dumb too.
So something new that we're going to try this week is to give point values to each of our rankings and come up with that definitive Rank 'em podcast list of the lists, like a conglomerative list of everything.
Yeah, so here is our composite list. Coming in fifth place was Onward and Ratatouille. Fourth place was shared by Up, Cars, and Incredibles. Monsters, Inc. comes in third, which is impressive because I didn't have Monsters, Inc. on my list. So it was only on
Virtual
two lists.
high five.
It was only on two lists, and it comes in third. Finding Nemo is second, and then Toy Story is the Rank 'em Podcast's definitive number one best Disney Pixar movie.
Sounds about right to me.
So that is.
So
Go ahead, Reese.
no. I go ahead.
So that is our top 5 list there from our Rank 'em Podcast definitive Disney Pixar movies. So if you enjoyed the podcast today, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We're on all major podcast platforms. However you want to listen to us, we're also putting these up on YouTube as well. So thanks for joining us here this afternoon. And we've got a instant reaction show that we will post that's a little more adult themed. we take the blinders off, the filters off for the reaction show. But thanks for joining us on the Rank 'em Podcast. Check out the reaction show coming up here in just a hot second. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.